Hello from the Channel studios in London and welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches, the programme that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Teniola Oyetayo. On the programme this week, Hawaii death toll rises above 100, making it the deadliest US wildfire in a century. Plus, Afghanistan women fight for survival 2 years on the Taliban rule. The death toll from wildfires in Hawaii has risen to over 100, making it the deadliest in modern American history. With hundreds of people still unaccounted for, the toll is expected to rise as search operations continue. Local residents sift through the ruins of Lahaina as the death toll continues to rise, making the Maui wildfires in Hawaii the deadliest the U.S. has seen in more than a century.
This is our first time coming back and actually knowing that our house burned down. We haven't really known anything for the last couple of days because there's no information coming through. Since we have no power, no cell service, no Wi-Fi, we're getting bits from car radio, but nobody really knows until they can make it in here whether their houses are standing or not.
People lost everything, homes, jobs, their cars, some their pets. There's still people missing. I've fought wildfires in California, and I was here yesterday when it flared up, and I've never seen something ravaged so fast. This is going to go on for a while. This is going to take years to recover. And it just breaks my heart that all the history from back in the whaling days of the 1800s, dust, ash and dust.
As you're leaving Lahaina, my grandma has property there. The entire property is gone. And that property housed a lot of our family. My mom's sister and a cousin and her family, and then right next to them is another cousin who it's a family property, so it's kind of divided up for different homes, but it's all gone.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency says thousands of structures have been damaged or destroyed and more than 2,000 acres of land burned, causing an estimated $5.5 billion in damage.
The coming days and the weeks, they're going to be tough. They're going to be difficult as people process what they have lost and what the road ahead looks like. But we are going to be with the people of Hawaii, as I have committed to the governor, every step of the way. This is going to require every tool that we have in our toolbox. We are not going to be able to rely on all of the traditional programs that we do in the continental United States. And so we are working very closely with the governor to better understand all available options, whether that means longer term we bring in tiny houses or our transitional housing units to help him create the communities that he wants.
Survivors have been sharing harrowing stories, with many still looking for relatives missing since the blaze.
There was a kid underneath a car on Front Street. Looked like his dad was trying to protect him, but they just was burnt. Pets, cats, dogs, just all burnt right in the middle of the road. And then before the fire even got to this side, there were people running towards our house. Like their hair looked like it just got burned, their face was all black. And then there's just all just sweat running towards us.
Just from our parking stall to the entrance of our apartment complex, it went from blue skies to gray to black. And all we seen was embers from fire that we had no idea what's going on. There was no siren, nothing. And it was just heartbreaking seeing our community. My neighbors, lots of elderly people. trying to make it down the stairs just to get into their car. Coming so quick, we could feel the heat. It's sitting in our car. And out of nowhere, I just hear banging on this window. And everything's dark, so I look to my left, and I'm literally right next to this car where this grandmother is yelling for help. And she's just telling me, please help me, I have a baby. And I just, at that time, I'm like, what do I do? So of course I jump out, I tell my husband, you tend to the grandma, I'm grabbing the baby. I run out, I run around her car, open up the back, the baby's on her side. Right behind her, I reached over, I grabbed this baby. She was about 2.5, 3 years old. I grabbed her, she was sitting on a blanket, I wrapped her with the blanket, and I told my kids, you guys run. Don't turn around and look for me. And my 9-year-old couldn't. She just kept telling me, Mom, I can't. Please, Mom.
This tourist recounts the dramatic moment he had to jump into the ocean with his wife and children to escape the fire.
And we tried to make our way back, but we couldn't. We got stuck. We tried to come back. We ended up in Front Street, my family and I, and it was just black smoke coming above us, and traffic was stuck. We were there by the seawall by Bubble Gum, I believe, and it got really real when we saw the flames. And I had to think fast. We had to get out. We left our vehicle, and myself, my wife, and our 5 kids, we all got in the ocean. We found a floating board that we hung onto, and we think we were out there floating, and it was just so surreal, and everything was burning around, explosions, cars blowing up, like embers was flying, we couldn't breathe. Because we couldn't breathe, there's no air, it's just the carbon monoxide, and we held on as best as we could, and at some point, the ocean almost swept my kids away a few times, but yeah, we stuck together, we held on, we're not going to die this way, no, and we're here, we're alive.
Officials warn the death toll will continue to rise as more victims are discovered. Dogs trained to detect bodies have covered only 3% of the search area so far. Officials also say identifying the victims is a tough task since the fire was so intense, even metal structures had melted in the heat. The state emergency notification system and decision-making during the fire are set to be reviewed after some residents questioned whether more could have been done to warn them before the fire overtook their homes. Sirens stationed around the island, intended to warn of impending natural disasters, never sounded, and widespread power and cellular outages hampered other forms of alerts.
Generally speaking, we do not have sirens for fires. Okay. I don't know if anybody in any other state does. The sirens tell you to go in and turn on your television and listen to the news reports. It's usually for tsunami warnings and hurricanes. We don't want people, if there's a fire, going back into their home and turning on their TV. We'd rather they take evasive action. So I think there's a lot of talk about people maybe misunderstanding the purpose.
Meanwhile, volunteers and aid groups have mobilized to help those who have been affected by the disaster. The flames were fueled by a dry summer and strong winds from a passing hurricane. According to officials, one fire moved as fast as 1.6 kilometers every minute. Scenes of devastation seen in Hawaii have become all too familiar elsewhere in the world this summer. Wildfires, often caused by record-setting heat, forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of people in Greece, Spain, Portugal, and other parts of Europe. In Western Canada, a series of unusually severe fires have sent clouds of smoke over parts of the United States causing air pollution. Afghanistan's Taliban marked the second anniversary of their return to power this week, declaring Tuesday a public holiday. But women, largely barred from public life, didn't take part in the festivities. Many women who gained opportunities in education and work during the 20-year presence of foreign troops in a Western-backed government are now struggling.
At home in northern Afghanistan, a 19-year-old Kushi draws a self-portrait, a figure in a burqa inside a cage. She studied law and political science at the Balkh province's main university until the Taliban barred women from higher education last year. Now Kushi, identified by her last name due to safety concerns, draws to alleviate her depression.
After the Taliban banned girls from universities and announced that girls can no longer continue our education, I felt so upset. Day by day, my mental health deteriorated. I was not happy at all. I was always depressed. I felt like a bird stuck in a cage, one that has lost all her happiness.
The Taliban closed universities to women in December 2022, sparking rare public protests that followed the closure of most girls' high schools. Encouraged by her family, Kushi started seeing a psychiatrist twice a month. The psychiatrist, unidentified for his security, said since the Taliban took over, he sees 10 or 15 patients a day, up from 4 or 5, and most of them are women. The increase became even more noticeable after the Taliban barred women from universities. Like Kushi, 27-year-old Mariam's life has also taken a drastic turn in the past 2 years since the Taliban takeover.
The anniversary reminds me of 2 years ago, and I have the same feeling I had then, which was a really terrible feeling, because most of my friends and many people were forced to flee the country after facing many difficulties.
Mariam used to work as a database officer for an international education project before the Taliban took over the country. She lost her job following the subsequent closure of the project. She then went on to become a teacher at a private school for girls, a job she was only able to hold on to for a year before the Taliban-led administration banned girls from attending high school and universities. She now runs a tailoring workshop.
I never turned back, nor did I ever give up. I continued on my path. Although there are no educational opportunities after the Taliban closed schools and universities for women, our minds can't be restricted. We can use our minds and fight against them. I feel we should not miss opportunities and give in to obstacles. We can overcome them.
It's the latest in a series of policies that restrict Afghan women's legal rights. The Taliban banned beauty salons in June, forcing thousands of Afghan women to close their business. Since seizing power in August 2021, the Taliban has also barred women from parks, amusement parks and gyms, and has ordered them to cover up in public.
I don't feel good and I'm not happy. Right now, the Taliban are not ruling the country in the interest of the people. I don't understand why they are so negative about women. They said they'll be able to provide security for the people, but it hasn't been much better.
Although Afghanistan is enjoying peace not seen in decades, the United Nations says there have nevertheless been dozens of attacks on civilians, some claimed by the Islamic State rivals of the Taliban. The UN World Food Programme says 15.3 million people are facing acute food insecurity in the country of nearly 42 million people. With a sharp reduction this year in humanitarian aid and no foreign government formally recognizing the Taliban, aid workers and diplomats say the level of development assistance to help with the problem is limited.
When Foreign Dispatches returns, War disrupts Sudan's education sector as thousands flee the country. More details after the break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the program. The conflict in Sudan, which began in mid-April, has pushed the country's education system into a state of collapse, with many schools shut down or repurposed to host displaced people, and most national end-of-year exams cancelled. Some of those who have fled Sudan are seeking entry to schools and universities outside its borders. But in Chad, where more than 377,000 refugees have arrived, there are no such options.
Many schools in Sudan have either shut down or been repurposed to host displaced people. Now in Chad, Sudanese medical student Arafa Ibrahim says she is back to point zero.
I started university in 2017 and I have not graduated until now because of the problems in the country. They have destroyed the university and destroyed us as well. We don't have a future now. We are back to point zero, as if we have not studied at all.
The conflict has brought daily battles to the streets of Khartoum and the displacement of more than 4 million people within Sudan and across its borders. According to aid agencies, at least 89 schools across 7 states are being used as shelters, raising fears that many children will not have access to education and could be exposed to child labor and abuse.
The education system, like all the various sectors in the country, was in a very difficult situation. So, according to estimates, there were close to 7 million children who were out of school before the conflict broke out. And now this number has gone up to close to 9 million children who are in need of education support. Many schools have been converted into IDP, the internally displaced people gathering points. And in many cases, the IDPs, including women and children, have no other safe place to shelter. But in some cases, they have also been occupied by armed actors. So that's where we would want the armed actors to quickly move out of those schools and let the children come back for resuming their studies.
In the current circumstances, anyone would see that it's impossible to have a new academic year. If we had modern infrastructure or any online learning tools, we would have done so, just like other countries did during COVID-19. It's not clear when the new academic year will start. Only God knows, because students qualifying for final high school exams did not do them. We wish that the situation stabilizes so that we end the past year's exams and start a new academic year.
Even before the war broke out, Save the Children ranked Sudan as one of the top 4 countries globally where education was at extreme risk. Now the number of children out of school has risen to 9 million from 6.9 million. More than 1 million school-aged children have been displaced and at least 10,400 schools have been closed since fighting started.
In the month of August, South Africa pays tribute to women, reflecting on the courageous women who fought against the oppressive apartheid laws, as well as the remarkable progress achieved since then. At the South Africa-China Women's Forum held this month, women representing various sectors came together to discuss their roles in the South African society and the challenges they face. Our correspondent, Innocent Samosa, reports.
The economy of South Africa owes much of its success to the significant contributions made by women throughout its history. A vast array of exceptional South African women have played pivotal roles with notable figures including Winnie Mandela, Lillian Ngoyi, and Albertina Sisulu. These historical icons were fervent political activists who courageously fought against the apartheid regime.
And the contributions of women.
In another setting, the Consulate General of China in Johannesburg has chosen to celebrate women under the theme Women Together for a Shared Future. In focus are crucial topics such as BRICS cooperation from a woman's perspective and empowering independent and self-sufficient women.
Our two governments have engaged in dialogues and discussions on issues related to gender equality, women's empowerment, and so on. There have been a number of exchanges of delegations and visits among female leaders, activists, and officials. Such exchanges and visits provide opportunities for networking, knowledge sharing, and partners building to advance women's causes in either of our two countries.
A persistent concern that has endured over time is the ongoing struggle faced by women in business. However, these resolute women remain committed to actively stand against it.
Representation is not an act of charity, it is our right. The second important issue that we share as BRICS country, and I think that both South Africa and China, is the importance of economic inclusion of women. If one look at, and I'm sure my colleague, Sister Khadija will speak about that, if one look at the economies both of South Africa, I'm not so sure about that of China, but certainly of BRICS countries more generally when it comes to women's representation in management, women's access to capital, women's ownership of firms, it still remains a challenge. You can't have 50% of the population excluded from your economy. That is simply not an inclusive economy, and we therefore need to look at how do we ensure and work together to advocate for and build bridges and cooperate to ensure that women are included in all of our economies.
Women can be key role players in industry and development. It would have been us as the EFF inspiring to learn how Russia has maintained some of the highest levels of women's employment in the world, despite obviously the constant propaganda against our important global ally. Of course, we would look forward to the insights of the socialist women of Brazil and how they have been able to build a strong and formidable women's movement at the grassroots level.
A distinguished panel of women engaged in a comprehensive dialogue addressing the obstacles and remedies pivotal to making substantial contributions within a predominantly male-dominated environment.
I think with any industry, be it being an architecture, being an engineer, being in the attorney's profession, if you are firstly black, for me, and secondly, if you're female, even if you're a non-black female, it's actually quite difficult. I can recall for me to find articles was a challenge on its own. I don't think we have the resources that our other counterparts have to kickstart our careers. So I think if we provide the support and the structure for upcoming attorneys, then we are obviously going to produce high caliber attorneys.
Navigation is with effort, and so is with anything else that you do in life. I think it's about keeping your head above the waters and understanding that although the people in the room don't always look and sound like you, that you have valuable information to convey, that you have an input that you can give, and remembering that always kind of keeps you on top of your craft.
It is worth noting that this celebration coincides closely with the upcoming BRICS Summit. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa for Foreign Dispatches.
And that's the program today. But remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Teniola Oyetayo. Bye for now.